Trump breaking news. 5 arguments in favor of choosing a running mate, including Nikki Haley and Tucker Carlson. The next big question in politics is who will succeed Donald Trump now that he has a record-tight grasp on the Republican nomination for president. Who is his running partner, anyway? Nominees for president in the last several decades have used a variety of methods to determine which ally, opponent, or outlier to have on their ticket, with varied degrees of success. Trump casually mentioned someone I think I like to Fox News, but he quickly added, there's no rush to that. The nominees usually keep their announcements under wraps until right before or during the national convention. This gives them plenty of time to reconsider and builds anticipation. As a starting point, consider these 5 factors that have influenced the nominations of Trump's predecessors and what they may mean for his current campaign. Get ready to cast your ballot by perusing our voter guide to learn about the presidential candidates and their positions on important subjects. Point 1. Win over a segment of the electorate. Trump chose Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, in 2016 in part due to his popularity among white evangelical Christians in the Midwest, a sizable segment of the Republican base that had doubts about the New York real estate mogul and reality TV personality. In 2020, Joe Biden, a Democrat, campaigned on a platform that included a female candidate. The first woman of color to be chosen on a major party ticket, he picked California Senator Kamala Harris. She did her part to boost his profile among Democratic primary voters, particularly among black and female voters. In 1968, Republican Richard Nixon sought support from white ethnic voters, a large portion of whom were accustomed to voting for Democrats, by selecting Spiro Agnew, a confrontational Greek-American governor from Maryland. How did it go? Despite Agnew's resignation in the midst of Nixon's second term due to a bribery scandal, all 3 of those presidential nominees were ultimately successful in securing the office. Additionally, there was the infamous rift between Trump and Pence stemming from the assault on the Capitol on January 6, 2021, which occurred during the Electoral College vote tallying for Trump's losing re-election bid. Given that Trump's presidential appointees to the Supreme Court helped abolish abortion rights, this could imply that he no longer requires evangelical support. This time, he might challenge GOP Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the party's most senior black official, in an effort to solidify his unexpected victories among black voters, particularly black males. Suburban women have emerged as pivotal swing votes, and he may also aim his rhetoric at them. Among the female candidates for the position of running mate are Kristi Noem of South Dakota and Sarah Huckabee Sanders of Arkansas. Reconcile the faction. Even though Reagan had battled Ford for the nomination 4 years prior, it wasn't until 1980 that he made his first attempt to persuade Ford to be his running mate. After those negotiations broke down, Reagan rushed to enlist his bitter opponent for the nomination, George H.W. Bush. Before the fall election, the decision helped mend fences within the Republican Party, though First Lady Nancy Reagan still hadn't fully forgiven Bush for belittling her husband in the primaries, even though Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's brother and trusted advisor, strongly opposed the idea. Democratic presidential candidate Lyndon B. Johnson of Texas was approached by the brother in 1960 to run alongside him. Their alliance, which included both liberal Democrats from the North and more conservative Republicans from the South, was known as the Boston-Austin Axis. Attempting a similar feat 20 years later, Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis would select Texas Senator Lloyd Bentsen as his ticket. How did it go? In 1980, Reagan handily won the election, whereas in 1960, Kennedy narrowly won, with the help of LBJ's Texas electoral vote. Yet, Dukakis was defeated in 1988 by Bush, who was serving as vice president at the time. Possible implications for Trump. Their increasingly angry language against one another may make any cooperation between him and his former United Nations ambassador and last opponent, Nikki Haley, less probable, but her selection could heal wounds from the Republican primary. He claims she is birdbrain, while she calls him unhinged. She denies wanting the position, and he denies picking her. Just so the record shows, the more troublesome choice would be Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who was a primary opponent of Trump's and has embraced him, albeit anemically. No electoral college member may serve as president and vice president from the same state, as stated in Article 2 of the Constitution. Assuming both candidates still claimed to be residents of Florida, this would mean that an elector from Florida could not cast a ballot for both Trump and DeSantis for president and vice president, respectively. Point 3. Strengthen an area that has been compromised. Party member. In 2008, President Obama appointed Joe Biden, a senator from Delaware. Biden was a generation older than Obama and had the kind of extensive experience in Washington, D.C., particularly in the area of international affairs, that Obama's first-term senator from Illinois lacked. Picking Dick Cheney as his running mate in 2000 allayed the fears of some Texan voters who were concerned about George W. Bush's inexperience in Washington, particularly in the area of foreign affairs. He served as defense secretary and as a congressman from Wyoming. Cheney had already established himself as a successful businessman in Texas by this point, so he returned to Wyoming incognito to work out the constitutional kink. How did it go? 2 terms were won by the Obama-Biden ticket and 1 by the Bush-Cheney ticket. This could be a way for Trump to appease those who are skeptical of his populist ideology and temperament by selecting someone who is less radical and has closer links to the powerful. Consider Tim Scott or Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Point 4. Risk it all. Bill Clinton, a Democrat, picked his running mate in 1992 to play on his strengths rather than fix his weaknesses. Similar to Clinton, Senator Al Gore of Tennessee was a rising generation member and a moderate Southerner. That approach is unusual. Nominees have often sought to reach a middle ground, whether that be in terms of age, ideology, or geography. Senator John Edwards of North Carolina was chosen by John Kerry in 2004 by a fellow senator who shared his temperament. He was from a different region than Kerry and had competed with her in the Democratic primary. He was also working for Edwards. How did it go? 2 terms were won by the Clinton-Gore ticket, but Kerry was defeated by George W. Bush by a hair. In Trump's case, it may imply reiterating his commitment to the MAGA movement, which has been his political hallmark from the beginning. Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy's defense of Trump was the defining characteristic of his nomination campaign. Once considered a centrist, New York Representative Elise Stefanik has taken up Trump's rhetoric by calling the defendants in his January 6 case hostages and describing his legal difficulties as a witch hunt. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio and Kari Lake of Arizona are both MAGA supporters who have campaigned with Trump. Step 5. Complete a Hail Mary pass. Some presidential candidates who are up against seemingly insurmountable odds have chosen running mates who are shocking or unconventional in the hopes of capturing attention and changing the storyline, if only for a little while. In 1984, during the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco, Walter Mondale thrilled the crowd by selecting Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman to be nominated for a major party's national ticket. John McCain's 2008 selection of Sarah Palin, the governor of Alaska, who was unknown even among many Republicans, caused quite a stir at the Republican National Convention. The convention was invigorated by her confident speech. How did it go? Reagan defeated Mondale in a record 49-state sweep, while Obama easily defeated McCain. To be fair, it's hard to hold their running partners responsible for it, even though they both end up in hot water. It was already looking like they were picked for races that would be difficult to win. Possible implications for Trump. Trump appears to be in no rush to risk a long pass given his slim advantage in national surveys. But he has made a living challenging accepted norms. What about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the House firebrand, if he was seeking the unexpected? How about Tucker Carlson? Newsmax quoted Trump Jr. as saying the media troll would certainly be a contender.